This is a Cameroon journal editorial titled Time for a Southern Cameroon's Defense Coalition. Again, the subject is It is time for a Southern Cameroon's Defense Coalition. Right after Skakouf's first conclave in February this year, the Cameroon journal published an editorial titled We Still Don't Have a United Front. In that editorial, we made the case that the united front coming out from that first conclave existed basically on paper. We reported that the amalgamation had no articles or memorandum of understanding that bound the groups. After Bo Hibet pulled out of the collection, we again called upon Skakouf to tidy up the house by articulating articles that define the place and rule of each of the member groups to the effect that some do not feel conquered and irrelevant. If Skakouf has to remain a relevant body, we stated, and I quote, the uniting factor that Southern Cameroonians yearn for, certain things must be revisited and addressed as a matter of emergency before another group or groups go the way of Bo Hibet and Maurice. End of quote. We entreated Skakouf to reconvene with those still on board and those who believe in the idea of a stronger united front to consider framing a working document that spells out exactly what role each member group plays in the union. It is unfortunate today to report that after 6 months of the first conclave, and having held 2 others in April and July, that Skakouf still doesn't have a document that sets the rules and regulations binding its members and spelling out their functions. As a fallout from this, on Monday, August 21, the AGC of Dr. Cho Ayaba published a 5-page well-articulated statement basically confirming that Skakouf still operates as a loose organization with a structure that portrays the organization more like a political organization or political party. The AGC statement adds that, under such circumstances, it finds it difficult to function effectively within Skakouf owing to the absence of an MOU, Memorandum of Understanding. The AGC feels like only select people and select groups have relevance within the united front. It feels that without a clear mandate spelled out to each member of the united front, Skakouf is bound to collapse. In the absence of a clear and agreed upon working framework, the AGC wrote, reflected in a memorandum of understanding between the movements and the unity platform, and in the absence of regulatory terms of reference of the platform itself that guide and check its actors and operations, the platform eventually collapses in the short, medium, or long term, wrote the AGC. The AGC statement continues in another paragraph, and I quote, with these considerations, the AGC, in response to previous works in Skakouf, prepared and submitted a Memorandum of Understanding to the Secretariat of Skakouf on June 1, 2017. This Memorandum of Understanding had since then never been brought up on the Skakouf agenda for discussion and ratification, end of quote, again being part of the statement from the AGC. From this backdrop, the AGC says they wrote to Sissoko Julius Ayok Tabe, chairman of Skakouf Governing Council, pointing out the issues that are or were hampering unity and destroying the platform, and asking for 2 things to be done swiftly to lay a solid unity foundation, build and cement working relationships, and resolve the issues. At the Cameroon Journal, it is our opinion that the issues that the AGC has raised in connection to the absence of a working document for Skakouf members remain a very relevant issue. After 6 months and having held more conclaves after the first one, Skakov has no excuse for its inability to convey a working document that binds and spells out the framework under which it operates with its members. As far as Skakov is concerned, you do not want to call yourself an amalgamation if there exists no document that defines exactly the responsibilities and rules that each member of the group plays. And the AGC is also correct in suggesting that if governance in Skakov is not seen as coming from the groups that make up the union, Skakov and the interim government are bound to fail just like other governments that preceded it. Skakov leaders who want us to believe the rather frail excuses such as that the AGC just doesn't cooperate or is just out to sabotage and doesn't want to collaborate. Can Skakov tell the rest of us what rule the AGC and others like the SCYL have been assigned with within Skakov? How often are they consulted when it comes to decision making within Skakov? How many AGC and SCYL members are department heads within Skakov? How often are they consulted when it comes to filling the vacancies in different departments of Skakov? What we see about happening here is that Skakov is about being reduced to a club of two, that is, the consortium and the SCNC. And what appears unique about the consortium and the SCNC is that they really don't believe so much in self-defense. They both are believers in the doctrine of the argument of words against the argument of force. This may as well explain why self-defense groups are not finding room on the table to consult with Skakov. For Skakov to remain effective, appealing and relevant, bringing in the volume of money needed to execute this revolution, it must be seen to be making earnest efforts at working with groups it claims belong under the umbrella. Every group that makes up the umbrella, including the AGC, was welcome in because we believe they had some value they brought on table. The self-defense groups in particular have such an integral role in this struggle that cannot be compromised. Our worries are that it still doesn't appear like Skakov has been able to strike a working agreement with any of them. The groups are openly saying they feel alienated. They are not seen to be consulted when it comes to decision making. We are aware at the Cameroon Journal that Skakov would want them to jointly constitute the Defense Department of the Governing Council. But then, the self-defense groups have founded worries on the argument that without any basic working articles, they will fuse their funds into general coffers and then perhaps be rendered functionless and useless and will be made relevant only at the beck and call of Skakov, which, by the way, appears not to be so zealous pursuing self-defense. Having made the point, and on the flip side, the AGC of Cho Ayaba cannot push all the blame on their lack of commitment and involvement on Skakov. The AGC has self-inflicted wounds. The AGC's contention that Skakov has not initiated discussions on the Memorandum of Understanding is totally crushed and destroyed when we recall here at the Cameroon Journal that Cho Ayaba, the AGC leader, has never for once attended any of Skakov conclave. And isn't it a little disingenuous and intriguing that Ayaba was in Nigeria for the 4 days of the last conclave in July, but chose not to show up for any of the meetings? He did not even care to show up for half an hour. If his Memorandum of Understanding proposal that was so important and submitted since June, as he claims. What stopped Mr. Ayaba from showing up at the July conclave and insisting that it be made part of the agenda of that conclave? You cannot stay by the sidelines, play the music, and force others to dance by themselves. Not at all. You must join the music and dance with others. At the Cameroon Jonah, we at the Cameroon Jonah, we fiercely oppose any attempt by any movement that tries to form a parallel government to compete with the present governing council. That is, as long as the governing council is seen making earnest effort to work with other member organizations. But this politicking and strong arming coming from all the groups in the movement is now beginning to leave a toll on the struggle. We have a situation where every leader and every group is talking self-defense, but no one is actually carrying out self-defense. At the same time, they are all quick to take credit each time the leg soldiers on the home ground or on the home front carry out a major offensive. Neither SCACUF nor any of the self-defense groups can tell us who or what activities they have sponsored or are sponsoring on the ground for self-defense, if there is actually any, and we understand it for its sensitivity. However, the problem here is that all the groups are quick to take credit each time the leg soldiers, be they in Kumba, Lebialam, Iyumojok, or Bamenda, or Mbengwi, carry out major action. They take credit even where they know very little about who did what and who gave what. They know very little about who is sponsoring who and where and how. They take credit when they have done virtually nothing. How do we know this? We know it because we are talking to all the leaders of the struggle, including those in SCACUF, about certain actions on the ground. And every group claims credit for the happenings, leaving us to wonder who is actually doing what and how and where on the ground. We know it also because some of the foot soldiers on the ground are reaching out to some of us in the media and begging for little funds, just enough to print and do little things as print and circulate tracts and procure transportation that can facilitate their swift banishment once they carry out action in any location. If SCACUF and the self-defense movements were actually supporting these leg soldiers as they want all of us to believe, why would they be resorting relentlessly to us in the media for help to do this job? It appears therefore that there is a lot of talking about self-defense, but no one is actually carrying out self-defense. This is definitely not the way we're going to get the schools shut down this time. And it is neither the way we are going to win this war. Groups that have raised thousands of hard currency for the struggle are steadily pocketing it or sitting on the money and then choosing to take credit for every action on the ground when they have no idea what happened or who did what. And they have no contributions toward it either. We have classified information at the Cameroon Journal about some activities on the ground that we cannot disclose. But it supports the point that our self-defense groups, including SCACUF, are taking credit for actions on the ground they did not initiate or support. At the end of the day, they will start running around telling all of us how that they need more money to execute self-defense, when there is no evidence they have actually used what they collected in the first place. At the Cameroon Journal, we have this suggestion that all self-defense groups come under one umbrella and constitute the Governing Council's Defense Department if there is an agreeable MOU within SCACUF. However, if an MOU or agreement cannot be reached with SCACUF, Why not consider forming a Southern Cameroon Defense Coalition, SCDC, with the sole mission of defending the homeland? The coalition would have to carve out common strategy and discuss funding. This will ensure accountability and eliminate the situation where groups collect money and no one knows exactly what they do with it. Until this happens, we will suggest strongly here at the Cameroon Journal that no more donations be made to any group whose actions no one can account for in this struggle. No more money should be donated to any self-defense group that is not willing to work with others. Enough of the air ticket to this or that conference without any corresponding action. Enough of fundraising without action. All that counts now is action. Action that brings La République du Cameroon to submission and to the restoration of our homeland, the Southern Cameroons. Again, you heard this from the Cameroon Journal. You can read the scripts of this editorial later in the day at thecameroonjournal.com. And you can reach us at editor@cameroonjournal.com. Again, the email address is editor@cameroonjournal.com. I am Chris Anu, and thanks for listening today.